The Right Side with Doug Billings.
Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to The Right Side with Doug Billings, coming to you from smack dab in the middle of the fruited plain. Your host, the one who dispenses with great pleasure to you intellectual maturity. You are, after all, those of you who listen and watch this program, you're members of the most intellectually mature audience in podcast land, ladies and gentlemen. Don't ever forget that. Don't ever forget it. You can find us over at DougBillings.us. DougBillings.us, ladies and gentlemen. We are fighting the good fight over here. Fighting to get truth, justice, the American way, to preserve the soul of this nation, this republic, which is what we are. Folks, today, I'm going to give you my usual expert analysis about a story that's shocking as much as it is revealing. The Democratic Party, formerly known as the Democratic Party, I should say, currently known as the Communist Socialist Party, is hitting rock bottom. In fact, they have hit rock bottom. A new Quinnipiac poll shows that their approval rating, wow, the Democratic Communist Socialist approval rating is resting uncomfortably at 19%, my friends. 19%. This is the reason they're so noisy. This is the reason the radical left does everything they can to pitch a fit and to support a pure Marxist in New York, for example, for mayor. They are experiencing their party's death pangs. The Democratic Communist Socialist Party is going extinct. 19%, that's lower than a snake's belly in a wagon rut, ladies and gentlemen, something that John Kennedy from New Orleans, from Louisiana might use. But it's no surprise. To those of us who have been watching, paying attention, especially during the last 5 years, the radical liberal movement in America is obviously out of touch with the American spirit, the American dream, the founders. And today I'm going to tell you why that the Democrat Communist Socialist Party is losing the American people by record numbers. How they've abandoned the divine providence of God. They've turned their back on the original intent of the founding fathers. How their disastrous combination of communism and socialism, which is why I call them the Communist Socialist Party, is tearing apart the fabric of this God-blessed nation. Ladies and gentlemen, The Right Side with Doug Billings is now upon you. Are you ready? Let's go.
Hey everybody, my name is General Mike Flynn, and I'm here to do a big shout out for my great friend and one of the best in the business, Mr. Doug Billings. Right Side with Doug Billings, Right Side with Doug Billings. Doug is the future of the airwaves when it comes to independent broadcasters and podcasters. He is the new Rush Limbaugh. He's exactly what America needs right now, looking for honesty, looking for wisdom, looking for truth, looking for patriotism. Listen to Doug Billings at Right Side with Doug Billings. God bless you and God bless America, and thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are winning. We're winning. Welcome to The Right Side with Doug Billings. Are you ready?
We are not liberal snowflakes who melt away in the face of tragedy, adversity, and challenge. We are a covenant nation under God, and His divine providence is not dead and it's not gone. It is living within each and every one of you. And you will bring it to life in such a way that the world has never seen before. We never back down. We never give up. We march forward.
Okay, folks, the numbers do not lie. Numbers don't lie. Let's start with the cold, hard facts from today's reporting out in the news. The Quinnipiac poll says that only 19% of Americans approve of the Democrat Party in Congress. 19%. Not making this up. It's an all-time low. They started taking this poll in 2009. This is an all-time low. Even 52% of their own voters are giving them the thumbs down. Meanwhile, Republicans are sitting at a 33% approval. Now, that's by no means stellar, but miles ahead of where the Dems are. And President Trump, He's at 40%. Some polls suggest 45%. But look, that approval rating, let's just say 40% because that's what the Quinnipiac poll said, he's sitting there despite the relentless attacks, as usual, from the left. So now, why is this all happening? Why this kind of rock-bottom numbers for the Communist Socialist, formerly known as Democrat Party? Well, in my view and in my analysis, it's pretty simple. The Democrats have lost their way, folks. They've lost their way. They've turned their backs on the heart and of the soul of America. I mean, I think evidence of the obvious is sufficient. Look at any one of their policies. This isn't just a political misstep by them, by the way. It's a betrayal of everything that this nation was founded on, and it's being done purposefully. This isn't just a mistake. The radical left movement in the Democrat Party wants to fundamentally transform America. I'll get to that in a minute. But the American people are waking up to that. They're saying enough is enough. The Democrats' collapse isn't just about bad polling numbers either. It's about a profound disconnect from the traditional American values that made this republic the best in the world. These are the values of faith, the values of traditional family, freedom, the pursuit of happiness, and hard work. These are values that are rooted in the belief, my friends, that this nation was founded under the divine providence of God, as, by the way, our founding fathers intended. But the Democrats, no. They're sprinting in the opposite direction. They're doubling down, pushing radical anti-American candidates like Zoran Mamdani up in New York, purposely pushing that Marxist and the radical anti-American policies that follow. Evidence of the obvious is sufficient, folks. These anti-American policies coming down from the radical liberal left in America reek of godlessness and of collectivism, globalism. And the American people are rejecting all of this in massive numbers. The Democrat Communist Socialist Party is quite simply out of touch and doesn't even know what the soul of America is anymore. So let me be, if you don't mind, as usual, let me be bold and unapologetic in this. The Democrat Party, the Communist Socialist Party agenda is not misguided. It's guided on purpose and with a purpose. It's anti-American at its core. As I always say, evidence of the obvious is sufficient. COVID, lockdown, shutdown, destroy the economy, open borders, flood the country with people so that not only can those people be illegal voters for the new base of the radical Communist Socialist Party, but so that they can also help dilute the very identity of America. It's exactly what has happened over in Europe in places like Germany, France, and Spain, where they have no sense of national identity anymore precisely because of their immigration catastrophes. The radical left have made it crystal clear, and Barack Obama was the first one to say this, and he made it sound as part of a catchy... Whoops, did you hear that? That was the phone. That was President Trump. He can wait. I'll get back to him later. You people are more important, right? Yeah, sure. Sure, Doug. Where was I? So the anti-American sentiment of this radical liberal movement is at the core of what the Democrat Party today stands for. Barack Obama was the first one to say it. We want to fundamentally transform America. Really? You know, I never liked that statement when I first heard it, and especially now today with the gift of hindsight, looking back on that. Fundamentally transform America? From what? America doesn't need to be fundamentally transformed. Thank you very much. The very essence of that statement is anti-American. Look, America or any country isn't a perfect country, but we have the moral high ground. We're founded and inspired by God himself. Our documents inspired by God and written by men. I believe that. I believe that the divine providence of God inspired our founding fathers to craft and draft and publish our founding documents. Fundamentally transform America. And then they came up with the other one a few months or years later, right? We're going to build back better. Well, what they did was, and believe me, they had phone calls, Zoom calls, and conference calls about this very topic. The first word of that mantra is left out of public view on purpose. Build back better. The first word in that original mantra, as they discussed it in private, was destroy. Build back better. Some people plugged in transform, but destroy. I mean, come on. Transform and then build back better. Build back better? How are you going to build America back better? Building it upon the divine providence of God and the intent of the Founding Fathers is about as close to perfect as you're ever going to get. So again, fundamentally transforming America is an anti-American sentiment. The radical left movement, folks, the Democrat Party, they want to strip us. When they talk about fundamentally transforming America, they want to strip America of its moral foundation. They've already eliminated God from their platform. They want to strip America of its Christian heritage and the sacred principles, yes, sacred, that are laid out by our founding fathers. This is why we've drifted so far in America from especially with our justice system. Talk about drifting far away from the intent of the founding fathers. I mean, think about it. Our founding fathers, men like Washington and Jefferson and Adams, Franklin, Madison, I mean, all of them, they crafted a constitution that was inspired by divine providence. Yet they say that they want to fundamentally transform it. They believed, the founders did, in a government that protects individual liberty, not one that smothers it under the weight of big bureaucracy and socialism. They had specific debates about making America a republic and not a democracy. They built this republic on the idea and the truth that our rights come to us from God, not from some elitist group or politicians in Washington, D.C. But these communist-socialists, formerly known as Democrats, they've turned their backs on God. They've embraced policies that mock faith, target people like Catholics, undermine traditional family, and erode the very freedoms that our founding fathers fought for, died for, and waged their personal fortune and reputations to protect and build. Look at the track record of the radical left. They push for unrestricted abortion, calling it reproductive freedom, while ignoring the sanctity of life. I mean, you think about that for a minute and let that percolate through you. It is incredible where we are in America that we do not hold life as a sacred, God-given right. The radical left champions crazy, lunatic, kook, radical gender ideologies that confuse our kids. They defy God's natural law. Folks, let me tell you something. There is no such thing as transgenderism. No such thing. God does not make a mistake when he assigns your gender at conception. It's a mental disorder. That's what that is. It is a lie. And we have conversations in this republic about how the radical left communist-socialist, formerly known as Democrat Party, tried to convince children that in order for them to be happy, and this is barbaric and brutal, but it needs to be said, the radical left tries to convince children that in order for them to be happy, they have to mutilate their genitalia. Folks, that's not only crazy, it's immoral. The radical left, liberal kook fringe, they want to control your health care, they want to control your businesses, they want to control your speech, all while taxing us into oblivion to fund their bloated, wasteful programs. This is why Doge was so successful and so eye-opening. The liberals want to spend millions of dollars on the mating habits of cocaine as related to the South American green-spotted tree frog or whatever. This isn't just about policy disagreement, you guys. It's a rejection of the moral and the spiritual foundation of America, and that's why they are tanking. And what about their love affair with big government, the radical left? The Democrat Communist Socialist Party has an obsession with centralized control, whether it's in their Green New Deal, in energy, or universal health care, or gun-grabbing policies. It all smacks of communism and socialism. The Second Amendment shall not be infringed, period. Oh, but Doug, all they had were muskets back in those days. Muskets, now today we've got... Folks, at that time, muskets were the most advanced firearm available. So for the founders to say that everyone should have the right to bear arms, that's fairly profound. We are intended to have top-of-the-line arms. And no, it doesn't mean that they should have access to the nuclear codes and the button. Whoever tries to juxtapose that and make that point is a vastly intellectually immature person. But the Democrats are hell-bent on dragging America down the same dark path as all of these socialist, communist, and Marxist ideologies that have failed in the past. They want to replace the rugged individualism that built up America and replace it with collectivism, a collectivist nightmare where the state is your God. That's why they took God out of their platform. We cannot have people, if you're a communist socialist, you can't have people dependent upon God. No. Got to be dependent upon the state. And this is why they create chaos, crisis, and anarchy whenever they get the chance. Whether it's the riots after George Floyd, whether it's the open borders, or the Tim Walz situation in Minnesota. Remember that? He let Minneapolis burn to the ground during the Floyd riots. They want that kind of chaos to happen. That's why they pay to have rocks, bricks, and stones delivered on pallets to street corners so that radical liberals can throw them through storefront windows in times of crisis, because they believe that chaos, crisis, and anarchy drive us to think that we need big government to save us. The communist socialist slide and the rejection of the Founding Fathers' vision, that's at the core of what the radical liberal movement in America is all about. But let's call it what it is. The Democrat agenda in America is a Marxist power grab dressed up as compassion. Oh, they talk about equity. They talk about social justice. But what they really mean is a redistribution of your wealth and a powerful government overreach into your life. And they will silence anyone who dares to disagree with them. This isn't any speculation on my part. This is matter of record. It's in their policies, it's in their rhetoric, and it's in their actions. Evidence, as I say, of the obvious is sufficient. Take their response, if you will, to President Trump's second term so far. Democrats are I'm telling you, they're in the political wilderness out there. They have no idea where they are. They don't have any GPS. They don't have any roadmap out of it. They are trapped in their own doubling down of nonsense, and it's left them in this political wilderness. Republicans swept into the White House. They got the Senate. They got the House. I know not by massive numbers, but we've got the majority. And why is that? Because Republicans who are led by President Trump are speaking to the heart of America. Black, Hispanic, Asian, young voters, all groups and demographics throughout the Republic. And all of the Democrats, anyone who has any shred of intellectual maturity, are turning away from the radical liberal movement. Why is that? Because those Americans can see through the left, the radical left, empty promises. They can see it. They see a party on the Democrat side that's more interested in woke ideology rather than in jobs or national security or personal prosperity. The Democrats' own base is furious at them, and rightfully so. I mean, come on. The majority, folks, of traditional Democrat people, the ones that are not radicalized into this communist, socialist, liberal movement, the majority of traditional Democrats, the folks who I call John and Jane Doe on the streets of Wichita, Kansas, or New Braunfels, Texas, or Bismarck, North Dakota, wherever they may be. John and Jane Doe, who view themselves as traditional Democrats, are looking at their party leave them. The party has left them in the dust. And John and Jane Doe on the streets of America are saying to themselves, this is not what I signed up for. That's why so many multiple dozens of millions of people came to our side who used to be traditional Democrats, who voted for Donald Trump this last election. It's why Elon Musk, Tulsi Gabbard, Bobby Kennedy Jr. all came over to the right side, because the radical left movement has taken over the Democrat Party, and that party has left John and Jane Doe on the streets of America. That's what happens, my friends, when a party loses its moral compass. The Founding Fathers warned us about this. John Adams said, "Our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It's wholly inadequate to the government of any other." And the Democrats have forgotten that. They've traded faith for secularism, liberty for control, and the pursuit of happiness for a one-size-fits-all socialist dystopia. And the American people are saying, no thank you, no way. And so the reclaiming of America's soul is in progress. And that's the takeaway, friends. The Democrat collapse is a wake-up call for every freedom-loving American. This is our chance to reclaim the soul of America, of this republic. The 2026 midterms are coming up, and the polls show that it's a close race. 48% for Democrats, 47% for Republicans in generic ballots. Okay, statistical tie. But with President Trump leading the charge with his bold vision to make America great again, with people like me and you waking up and helping to lead the charge, we need to double down. We need to double down on the values that made this country the greatest on earth. Our faith in God, the respect for our Constitution and the original intent of the Founding Fathers, and a fierce commitment to individual liberty. We've got to reject this communist-socialist, Democrat, Marxist agenda that puts this godless vision for America in place. We need to elect leaders who will honor the intent of the Founding Fathers, who understand that this nation thrives when it's guided by God's divine providence. President Trump's approval rating may be at 40%, but that's because he's fighting the establishment. He's fighting the radical liberal media. He's fighting the radical left every single day. His signing this bold legislation, the big new bill that is now the big new law, cutting taxes, putting America first, this is what we need. This is what we need to double down on. It's not a perfect law. There is no such thing as a perfect law. Meanwhile, the Democrats are floundering. They're unable to connect with the hardworking men and women who understand the rubrics of this republic. And so, ladies and gentlemen, the Democrat Party's collapse is a sign, and I'll end on a good note, it's a sign that America is waking up. There is a great reawakening happening in this republic. I've seen it for the past 5 years, ever since I started this show with you. And I would like to think a small part of this show has a little bit to do with that great reawakening, the speaking of truth, of talking about how the Communist Socialists, formerly known as Democrat Party, have hit rock bottom because they've abandoned God. They've abandoned the founders. They've abandoned us, the American people. Their Communist Socialist, Marxist, anti-freedom, anti-American agenda is being rejected. And it's up to us to keep the pressure on. We're not the type of people that start riots and arson and anarchy, but we've got to begin to wake up people in our communities, in our counties where we live. That's where this fight is won, at the local level. So that's the call to action. Along with this, please remember to go to DougBillings.us, ladies and gentlemen. DougBillings.us, if you like the show. I never charge for it. So please offer a free will offering over there at DougBillings.us. Set up a monthly reoccurring donation so that I can continue to bring you the program. I don't ever charge anybody for this show, but it helps to produce the show, and it helps me make a living. So DougBillings.us, you can contribute to the show over there. In fact, let's prayerfully consider understanding that we are in this thing together. That's how we're going to win. And I appreciate you, ladies and gentlemen. We started this thing together back in January of 2021. It's been an incredible 5 years or so, and I'm grateful and honored to have traveled the country to be able to meet so many of you. But get out there. Talk to your neighbors. Share this show. Tell them to go to DougBillings.us. Keep the faith. Hold the line. And let's make America great again and double down on that effort. We're in this thing together, ladies and gentlemen. Believe it. For the Republic. God bless you. Cheers.
The Right Side with Doug Billings.